Hey, welcome into Warchant TV. And we're here today to talk about everybody's favorite subject, Ira, the ACC. And joining me is Warchant.com's managing editor, Ira Schoffel, who penned one of his many outstanding columns for Warchant.com. And it's, like I said, it's a topic near and dear to everyone's heart, and that is the shenanigans that tend to happen in the ACC. And Ira, really enjoyed the column. You can read that on Warchant.com if you're a subscriber. And if you saw last week what was going on with several teams, we're talking about a couple West Coast teams that were cast-offs from the old Big 12 and SMU. That, yeah, Ira, I got to say, when I first saw the stories, I'm like, this is not real. Or it's just that, sure, those schools, obviously they want to find a home. Sure, they reach out to the ACC. ACC can look into it. But then when I saw it was serious, and it was in literally, it looks like, and you tell me it looks like from what I've read, from Ross Dellinger and Pete Thamel and people like that, it looks like literally it was winning a vote of adding these teams to the conference, which is just sheer buffoonery to me. But please expand a little bit on what's going on.
Yeah, Stan, I was with you when they first are talking about Stanford and Cal as possible additions to the ACC. It was kind of laughable at first, and then you start thinking, and you're like, wait a minute, they might be serious. And sure enough, as you said, they didn't do an official vote. A lot of times with things like this, they won't actually take an official vote until they know they've got enough votes. So it's basically a straw poll kind of going around the room in a conversation between the presidents and the ACC. And basically, yeah, of the 15 schools, including Notre Dame, which gets a vote, even though they're only a part-time member, 11 of the 15 schools were willing to add Stanford and Cal. I don't believe they were at the point yet where they were going to make a decision on SMU. SMU is another school that the conference is looking at, but they were really close to, basically if one of the other four schools, which would have been Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, or NC State, had agreed to let Stanford and Cal in the conference, they would have let them join. And again, the reason I wanted to write about it isn't just because, just a pile on the ACC. And I know they don't have a lot of good options right now, but it just speaks to the fact that they have no idea what they're doing. Like there's no direction, there's no firm direction. And especially when you listen to the comments from Jack Swarbrick, Notre Dame's athletic director, who was kind of driving this conversation, saying that, well, those are two incredible institutions and they shouldn't be left out in the cold. Well, that's not the ACC's problem. That's not Florida State's problem. And so all of that just kind of stirred up a lot of the emotions that have already been brewing as we look at this situation from Florida State's perspective.
Yeah, the whole Notre Dame thing. It seems like I think if you add up the two worst things that have happened to the ACC, it's number one is John Swofford. Number two might be Notre Dame, and what they brought to this conference. And I remember going back to the initial grant of rights, Ira, when that was done, and talking to some FSU higher up, saying Notre Dame was coming into the ACC full time. Notre Dame promised. Yeah. But I kind of laughed at that because I knew I had a source in the Big 12 at the time, and Notre Dame was telling them the same thing when they're negotiating. They were just seeing who could they sucker in the most to give them this friends with benefits type of arrangement. And the ACC fell for that, and the fact that they're driving this. The thing that also bothers me about this whole thing is some of these presidents who vote for this, how do they not learn their lesson? Because you see some of the writers and some writers I respect that seem to know what they're talking about. And they bring up the fact that, well, it opens up the California market. It opens up the Texas market. Isn't this Groundhog's Day? Didn't this just happen with Boston? Everyone's like, get in the Boston market. Get in that lucrative Northeast New York market for Syracuse. What did that do for the ACC? And here they seem to be repeating the same thing. I don't get it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, and I've listened to some comments by former, I guess one of Fox Sports' former executives, and he talked about that concept of getting in some of these other states, and then what that can do to your what that can do to your TV rights. But it's not cut and dry. Like the cable systems aren't going to just say, oh, okay, now you have a team in this state, we're going to start charging you, we're going to let you charge us more, or we're going to start paying you more for being on. It's not that easy. And we saw that, as you said, with Boston College and Syracuse. Now, the ACC network is distributed around the country. It's on all of the great, many networks or cable packages. But what's also happening is cord cutting. And there's less and less people using cable. And so that it's debatable whether or not that was a sound strategy a few years ago. It's clearly not a sound strategy going forward when less and less people are going to be on cable in the first place. And you look at, what the Pac-12, the reason the Pac-12 dissolved is because they could really get a good number for their TV rights. Well, why couldn't they get a good number for their TV rights? Because they don't have football playing schools. They're not a draw from a football perspective enough as a conference. And now the ACC is looking to take two of the four that nobody else wanted. Like the whole conference couldn't get a lucrative TV deal. Nine of the, or five, I guess recently, five, but seven, including Southern Cal and UCLA, have left. And you're going to take one of those remaining four. And again, the fact that Notre Dame is part of the conversation just makes no sense. I kind of got it to a degree when you thought there was a chance, like you said, that Notre Dame would ever come on as a full-time member, because that would be a big deal. If that were to happen, as John Swofford basically kind of baited the conference presidents to believe, if that were to happen, it would have changed everything. It would have opened up the TV deal. Florida State and all these schools would have made a lot more money. But Notre Dame was never going to do that. They don't have to do that. But in the meantime, they wielded their influence, and they're still, even this past week, trying to wield their influence in a conference that they clearly don't care about.
I think you made the best point in the column. It's just like Notre Dame has nothing to lose in this. You brought up the, what happened back during COVID when they were like, oh, we don't need to play because they've got all the money. It doesn't affect them. It's the same thing here. This doesn't. They would sure let's bring in Stanford and SMU and Cal. Why not? I mean, it doesn't affect them at all. They have their own TV deal. The fact that they are actually having a voice in this discussion when they have zero commitment to football, which drives, as we know, 90% of the revenue, is just, again, it's asinine. They're doing it. It's scary. I want to ask you this. If Eric Barron was still the president, hypothetical here, Ira, is there any doubt he would have signed off on this? And right now, those teams would be headed to the ACC because he was all about academics, remember?
It would have been a huge battle with the board. I mean, I think the difference, probably one difference now, is I agree. I mean, I talked to Eric Barron at the time, and he was of the belief, like a lot of these university presidents, that academics is a big part of it, and it's not just about where the football revenue comes from. But I think this board of trustees with Peter Collins and some of the people on that board, I think it's a stronger board now. I think they're driving the discussion now, and I don't know. I don't know if it would have got to the point where they would have to remove him, but I don't think they would have allowed him just do what he wanted to do because, again, I think this board, along with President McCullough and Michael Alford, they're setting the agenda.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you can read more about Ira's column on warchant.com. And I mean, any final? I mean, is this done? Because it looked like they said they put off the vote because they were one vote short. Do you think this is dead in the water, or are they going to try to somehow come up with some other weird way to repackage this thing to try to force this down everybody's throat?
It's a great question. I know there's reports now that I think like Stanford's trying to call in some of their influential people, Condoleezza Rice, and obviously Stanford is a very powerful university. They're one of the richest schools, if not the richest school in the country. They've got a tremendous, resources, and they're a powerful entity. So I don't think that they're just going to sit back and just wither into the dust. I think they're going to try to get somewhere, and the ACC is probably their top choice. So I could see a scenario where they keep pushing. But again, it really, if you're Florida State, it probably depends on how strong, North Carolina and NC State are. Can somebody twist their arms, maybe give them some sort of, carrot to get them to vote for it? But, at the end of the day, I mean, we all think Florida State's going to leave at some point. I just wanted to kind of bring all this to light right now, partly because, there was so much pushback to Florida State when they announced that they had serious concerns and they were going to look to leave. And a lot of people criticized FSU for not just kind of helping the ACC. Why don't you be part of the solution instead of the part of the problem? And again, even after that happened, you look at what's happened these last 2 weeks, and clearly nobody in the conference still sees the big picture. They still want to kind of operate the way they operated 20 years ago. So it's just, to me, it should embolden Florida State, and we'll see when they can get out and where they can go. Those questions still aren't totally resolved. I know you've posted some information on our message boards that people can read as well. But, the idea that leaving the door open at the Board of Trustees meeting, President McCullough kind of left the door open that maybe if things changed, maybe things got better, there's a way they could stay in the ACC. They've made it clear there's no way to stay in the ACC.
Yeah, no, I think anybody around the situation agrees with you there, Ira. I will say it's interesting enough. You read it, you alluded, we have some updates on whatever's going on with Florida State, the ACC, potentials with the Big Ten, SEC. We'll stay on top of that. And if you're a Warchant subscriber, you can read that. I find it interesting that the 4 teams that are against this, I pointed out in those updates of the 4 teams I've confirmed they're having some kind of discussions with other conferences because it's like the other ones don't have a landing spot. These other four think, well, there's a decent chance we have a landing spot if the ACC breaks up, so everyone else is just holding on for dear life. I will say the one scenario with all those billions of dollars Stanford has, with all them, I'd say if they want to go to FSU and Clemson, say, you know what, we'll make up the media rights difference for you. I think
Right.
that'd be the one situation they can afford to say, if you really want in bad enough, okay, there's a simple solution and everybody's happy. I mean, it takes one of those guys to write the check there. One of those
Right.
Palo Alto guys could easily do it. So I mean, I'd say that's it. But anyway, read the full column, a lot of good stuff in there, warchant.com. And of course, we're going to stay on top of this. And then scrimmage going on
Yeah.
tonight. When you watch this, we may have the update by the time you watch this. It could be afterwards. And I guess they have Monday off, Ira, and
Yeah.
take another day
Correct.
off, and then it's just all back to regular schedule, right? Starting Tuesday morning.
Yeah, so stay tuned to the website, warchant.com, and then also YouTube channel, Warchant TV, for we'll have interviews with Mike Norvell and coaches after the scrimmage. We'll have stories after the scrimmage as well through Monday and into Tuesday's practice. So, it's closing in on the midway point of preseason camp, but there's still a lot of developments to follow.
Yeah, and like and subscribe. Should have said that earlier, but hit that bell button so when there's we got live shows coming up almost every night, it seems like, and we got video features like this. And you go ahead and you hit that subscribe button with the bell. You will be alerted. And also, we appreciate you hitting the like button. That helps get this video, pushes out to more people in FSU land. So thanks again, Ira, and we'll be seeing you soon on Warchant TV.